Start the recording. Okay, good morning and welcome to CSEC 3010, Cybersecurity Risk Management. My name is Erastus Karanja, Dr. Erastus Karanja, Professor K, whichever works for you. I will be posting this recording later on, and basically the agenda for today is to go through the course content and go through the course syllabus, look at what is expected of you and what is expected of me, and chart the way forward. We'll be meeting at this time 11 to I think 12:15 or something like that, or 12:30 every Monday, and hopefully that's the way things will go. I hope you continue to observe the social distance, washing your hands, wearing your mask, and hopefully very soon we'll get rid of this thing and we can go back to how things used to be, or maybe go back to the new normal. So I'm hoping that you're able to see what I'm sharing on the screen. This is the Blackboard shell, and you click on start here. So that shows you the time that you need for this class. I think some of you have taken a class or two with me before, so they are familiar with this information or this part here that talks about how many hours you need per class. And this is usually to act as a guide. Some of you might require more time, some of you might require less time. Now, some of you might have taken the cybersecurity fundamentals. Actually, everybody should have, because that's the prerequisite for this class. And that class might have been a little bit more technical. This class is not technical. There is a lot of reading in this class, and that's what you're going to find in any class that talks about policy. There's a lot of things that you're going to be reading about. We have very few technical items in this class. It's more about reading documents here and there, evaluating and things like that. So if you had some concern about the technical aspect of this is a little bit more on the policy side, is more materials, and is usually targeted at management. So 7 hours. If you're taking 4 classes, 5 hours, you multiply that by the number of classes that you're taking, and then you find out maybe it's 35 hours for 5 classes or 28 hours for 4 classes. So that should kind of give you like an idea when you're planning your days or when you're planning your week. So if you're a full-time student, remember that should be your first priority. I know we have to work sometimes, but make sure that you're not sacrificing your academics at the altar of work. A time will come when you'll be working full-time, but if you're going to school full-time, please try to do that. Okay, a little bit of introduction about myself and some information about how to go about accessing the resources. And since you're already here, so I'm hoping that you are able to navigate that. So meet your instructor. This gives you a little bit more information about myself. That's my email address. You can use that. I have a phone number here, and this is my work cell. So this is actually a line that is purely dedicated to students. It's not my personal line. So use that line to get in touch with me. If you want to text, if you want to call, if you have WhatsApp, maybe we can do that sometimes. So that is the line that you should use to get in touch with me, or through email, whichever works for you. If you're working on an assignment and you're having some issues, use that line. We have office hours. I'm actually now in the office, but I'm rarely going to be here. But we still have office hours. They are online, so you can call me, text me, tell me if you want to meet during that time, and we can schedule to have a session online. Or we can just through a phone conversation. So make use of this time. Now remember, anytime that a professor provides office hours for you, those hours are for you. Make use of them because you're paying for them. And sometimes we just sit down, nobody shows up, but life goes on. So make use of those office hours. A few information here about my research. I do a little bit of research here and there. So if you want to see what I'm working on, you can click on that link. Okay, course documents. So this page walks you through the syllabus. I think I emailed the syllabus, and I'm hoping that at least you have gone through the syllabus. If not, then you can get the syllabus here. We have 2 versions here. If you want to look at the one through the internet, that's the interactive one, you go through here. If you want to print and have a hard copy, you can get through this. And the syllabus also includes the course calendar, which is very, very important because it kind of gives you like a snapshot of what you're going to be working on for the whole semester. So before I proceed, any questions so far? Jacob, any question? Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, so Jasmine, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, nice. So let's keep going. So we have the interactive syllabus, so we click on that. And basically this opens up some information, the same thing you have about me. We're going to be meeting that course description and the course textbook. So I'm hoping that you have been able to get the course textbook. It's a little bit thick book, but it has a lot of information. So this is mostly for the managerial level, and it's a lot of reading, but it's interesting reading, not technical. So that's the book that you're going to be using for the class. And then we also have some other resources here that will be helping us to be able to work a little bit more on cybersecurity policies and programs. Course learning objectives, what you're going to be working on, we're looking at cybersecurity. And this is one of the areas that is actually growing. A lot of job openings are coming up here. And what I can tell you is if you are able to get security clearance before you graduate, make sure you do that. Because there are very many, now what the government is actually doing is it is contracting. So it's giving the jobs to private contractors. And these private contractors are hiring very many people who have security clearance. If you have security clearance, you actually put yourself ahead of the curve. So if you can get that before you graduate, that will be very, very nice. Also, there are some certifications that you can actually take. So when you take the classes that are in the cybersecurity program, that's a good thing. But also talk with your professors and see if there are some certifications that you can take. So these certifications will actually also give you an advantage. So by the time you graduate, you have that, you have security clearance, and the world will be yours to take. So make sure you do that. We'll be meeting online for this class at least once a week. That's the part of that. Communication through all the way that, like that, assignments. So we have quite a number of assignments. We have case studies, we have individual projects, we have group projects, we have quizzes, we have a midterm and a final exam. So note about that. And this is how your grading is going to be conducted. So we have 3 case studies, individual projects, group projects, and on like that. So we have, I think, like 9 students in the class. And when you talk about the group project, so what you're going to be doing is every time there's a group project, you're going to pick somebody else. So you're going to pick one of your colleagues and then you can work together on the project. So I'm not going to be picking the groups for you, but if I find that people are struggling with picking the groups, then I'll do that. But you should not have uh, a repeat of the group member. So we have 3 group projects, so I'll expect you to at least work with 2 other students for the group project. 2 students should be enough. It's not a very complicated group project. It's something that you can finish within 1 week. So this is the breakdown. We're in week 1. We'll have quiz 1 by the end of this week. So all the assignments are due by Saturday 11 p.m. Not Sunday, 11 p.m. So you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to work on the assignments. So all the assignments are due by Saturday, 11 p.m. My advice is don't wait until Friday afternoon or Saturday to start working on an assignment. By Wednesday, you should have a good idea about what is expected of you. And maybe by Friday, Thursday, you should be done with the assignment. So in case you need to get in touch with me and get some clarification, you have enough time. Usually in the past, what I've seen is students wait until the last minute and then they'll be sending emails or trying to call on Saturday afternoon because the computer went down or they don't understand what's going on. And if you do that, you're taking a gamble. So my advice, have a good system and start working on your assignments early enough to ensure that you don't take a big risk. Week 2, we'll continue with chapter 2 and chapter 3. Now, I understand next week is Martin Luther King Jr. We're not technically supposed to have classes. I'm going to be available. Uh, we'll try to cover as much as we can by the end of next week, so at least that we have chapter 1, 2, and 3 done. Now, we are saying that we won't have a class on Monday, so we might have to meet on Tuesday to cover up or something like that. So let me know what your thoughts are. Next week, we'll have individual project 1 and then quiz 2. And you can see we have a number of quizzes. The quizzes are 10 minutes, 10 questions, 10 minutes, and you can retake them. So that's what we have. Attendance policy, just make sure they're not missing online sessions, and then some information about if you have disability, if you need extended time, and things like that. So that is the part on the syllabus. Any questions? Robinson, any question?
No, sir.
Okay, that's good. So let's see what else is there. Weekly learning workload. So this is how the assignments are going to be structured, is how the class is organized. So we talked about the time needed for the class, and then you can see week 1, week 2, and on like that. So on your side, you only have week 1 and week 2 available. But now I can show you how the class is going to be structured. We have exam on week 7, and then all the way to the end of the semester, we'll also have our exam number 2. So for week 1, introduce yourself. So I don't know who you are. At least you can see me through the video, I'm hoping, but I also need to know who you are. So how we are going to do that is we're going to be introducing ourselves. So the way we do that is we're going to use what's called the voice thread. So with the voice thread, what you do is you can either record yourself using another media and then you upload your video, or you can actually do it live. So what you'll do is you'll click on this link here, and then this link will bring you to this page. This is our first assignment. And then when you come in here, you'll click on introduce yourself to the voice thread, and you'll be presented with this page here. So this gives you like the requirements for the assignment. So make sure that you have answers to this before you start recording yourself. So you actually going to have like the way you can see me on the video. This will be the same way. You're going to enable video on your device, and then you go ahead. You click down here where there's a plus sign. You click on the plus sign, and because we're doing a video, you'll select this link here for the video. Okay, we're not doing the voice. We're not using the voice, the phone. We're not using the text. If you have recorded yourself, you have another video that you made using another media, and you want to upload that, you can do that. But if you're going to be doing it live, you'll click on this link. And then once you click on this link, you enable your camera, and then you start talking to the camera. And then you tell us what is your name, what is your major, what is your classification, your hometown, your career aspirations, and you answer as many questions as possible. And then after that, you'll hit submit. And then what will happen is your video will appear somewhere over here. And then when you log in again, you'll be able to see your colleague's video, and you'll pick 2 videos. You pick 2 videos and you watch those 2 videos, and then you make a comment. So when you're making a comment, you can use the same format. You can make a video comment, or you can, at least this time I'll give you the leeway. You can use a text to make a comment, but make sure at least the comment is constructive. So somebody might say that maybe their hometown is the same as you and you didn't know, you can contribute to that, okay? So like myself, I traveled over the holiday. I went to Europe and I went to Africa for 3 weeks. Even with the COVID, I was on a plane, and if that was what I was talking about in my introduction, then somebody might want to maybe get some more information about how was it to be on the plane for 8 hours, okay? How did you eat? How did you use the bathroom? How did you sleep, okay? Because we had to have our mask all through, okay? How was it like in Africa, okay? So things like that. So that's how we are going to be able to at least know each other and communicate. So that's the part of the introduction. So that should be done by Saturday. So this is due by Saturday, 11 p.m. And then we have quiz 1. So the same way, you'll click on quiz 1, and then you go ahead and take the quiz, and on like that. Any questions so far? Anam, any question?
No.
Okay, let's keep going. So that's the part of the weekly learning workload. And then on week 2, You'll have the individual projects. So you have chapter 1, chapter 2. These are just the PowerPoint slides. And then you have the quiz. And then now you have the first individual project. So this here is an assignment that is asking you to test the clarity of a policy document. So before you work on this assignment, you should have read chapter 2 and chapter 3 at least, because that's where they talk about this. You'll get information from here about how to answer this question. So the question asks you to locate your school's cybersecurity policy. So in this case, you're talking about the NCCU. If you go to another school, because these are online classes, there might be somebody from Wilmington, then go to your school. Now, if you can't locate it, then you can call the CIO. We have a CIO at Central, Chief Information Officer, or you can call the IT help desk and try to find out whether we actually do have a cybersecurity policy. Okay, and then once you have that document, read that document and try to see how easy is it for you to understand or somebody to understand that. Now, the book provides some information, and I'll provide some more hints as we continue about how a cybersecurity policy should be structured and how easy should it be for people to read and understand. So that's what you're going to be doing. We'll have our own cybersecurity for Central, and then we'll compare it with the US Army Clarity Index to make sure that it is clear for people to understand. If not, then you'll be able to see how we can make some improvement. So you're going to generate a Word document and answer the questions, and then you're going to upload that Word document right here. So this is an individual project. Any question? Now, week 3, we'll pick week 3, and the same way we have a chapter quiz, and then now week 3 will be coming from chapter 4, and this is a group project. So you're going to pick one of your colleagues, and then you're going to be a group, and then you let me know who is in your group, and then all what you can do is you can submit one document and then have your names, or both of you can submit. Okay, so you work together, you have one document, and then everybody submits the same document. So whichever way you choose. Okay, so does your school or workplace have a chief information security officer? So find out. The same way, does Central have a chief information security officer? If not, who does the person report to? Okay, so most of the companies, the chief information officer reports the chief information security officer reports to the chief information officer. For some companies, they report to the president. Okay, for some companies, they report the chief financial officer. So find out about that. Remember, this is all about policy, nothing technical. So what you're going to be doing is in this class, you might be required to be doing a lot of outside contact. Okay, you might be talking to or trying to find some information about what's happening at Central or even for other companies out there, because this is all about policy. Okay, so is this person viewed as a security champion? So security champion means this is somebody who actually has the interest of the university at heart, and they really highly regard this person. Okay, is this somebody who is accessible to the user community? So how easy is it for you as a student to have access to the chief information security officer? Okay, so these are not things that you're going to find in the book. These are things that you're going to find out by doing what? Interviewing and talking to people. Okay, so this is the first group project, and what you're going to be doing is you generate a Word document and then you answer all these questions. I'll provide more information, more input, but also you're welcome to do what? Seek clarification if there's something that is not very clear. Are we together?
Yes, sir. Quick question. For groups, that's just one person, or can that be like 3 people in a group, or just 2 people in a group?
Yeah, 2 people in a group should be fine. Let me see. We are how many? We are 8. So if we do, okay, we can do maximum of 3 in a group. Let's do a maximum of 3 in a group, so at least we can also have some more contribution, because research has shown that students learn more from each other. So we can have maximum of 3 in a group. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. But what you're going to do is, if you have you and then you have 2 other people in one group, in the next assignment you have to have another group, 2 different people altogether, and then the next assignment you have different group altogether. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Because we are not very many in the class. So, but if you can do that, then the most important thing is keep me in the loop. Let me know what is happening. Okay, that's one of the ways that you can show that you're being successful, and not only in this class but also in your other classes. please make sure that your professors know what is happening. Don't struggle. Okay, if you're having issues in the class, an assignment or something, let your professors know what's going on. Okay, if you have things going outside of the classroom, let them know way ahead of time where possible. Okay, if you're going to class or you're going for a meeting and you have a tire burst on the road, take a picture of that and have somebody who maybe can show that that actually happened. So usually what I've seen people do in the past is if you have maybe a tire burst on the road, get maybe like a time or clock or phone and take a picture, the tire and the phone to show the time. Because the more information that you provide to show that actually what's happening is true, then the more believable you're going to be. So you have to remember that you have to be your own advocate. Okay? So not only in this class, but also in your other class. And even when you're going, maybe you might be going for a job interview and something happens on the road. Okay, somebody clips your car. Okay, so provide as much documented evidence so that people can show that you're not saying that you're not telling the truth, but if you're more believable, people will be able to work with you. Okay, so that's where we are. So that's how the assignments are going to be structured. And the most important thing is to keep us in the loop. Online class hours, that's how we are going to be doing our sessions. And then we have office hour, student office hours. So I've provided you with a phone. Sometimes I'll be available on Blackboard just waiting for somebody to pop up. But the best way is because you have my phone number, just shoot me a text message or call me, tell me, hey, can we meet between this time and this time? I want to discuss XYZ. Okay? So if you're able to do that, that will actually be more productive. Instead of me just sitting and waiting for you, sometimes you show up, sometimes you don't show up. So that's not a good way to use our time. Okay, so I think that is where we are. Is there any question? Anything not clear? Now, my advice is anytime that we are going to be having a class session, I say there's a lot of reading that's going to be happening in this class. I'm not going to be able to cover everything in the class, so I'll kind of talk about the main ideas that are in the book. So what I can ask you to do is make sure you get the book and at least make sure that you're reading ahead of time. Now, usually to read a book chapter is going to take you maybe between 2 hours to 3 hours. Okay, so if you have 5 classes, know that is what 3 times 5 is 15 hours, and that's just reading a book chapter, and then you're taking some notes. Because if you're not reading, somebody else somewhere is reading, and when you go for those job interviews, you'll be interviewed and working based on the concept that you have learned. So some of you, actually, you took the cybersecurity class, and that knowledge comes up here because the things that you're learning in the cybersecurity fundamentals, that's the technical aspect, and for you to have those technical aspects, they need to be supported by what you're calling the policy and programs. So in this class, you're going to be looking at how company can set up the policies and programs that are going to be enforced through what you're learning in the cybersecurity fundamentals. So that's why this is a very, very important class. Usually this is for management. Some of you will rise up and you got the management part. So if you don't like the technical part of cybersecurity, then this might be something that actually appeals to you. Are we together?
Yes, sir. Quick question.
Sure.
I saw on your introduction that you're part of the NCPMI and you were extending an invitation for us to potentially be able to access those meetings too. So I was curious as to how exactly we move forward with that.
Okay, so usually what has happened in the past before the pandemic came, actually used to take some students for the meetings. So they usually meet every month and they used to allow us to take students for the meeting. But now most of the meetings are actually virtual. But we still have a student discounted membership that you can actually register and join. And this kind of gives you like a way for you to create some social network and know what's going on in the industry and what's happening with the project management, not only in North Carolina, but also nationally. So if that is something that you're interested in, I can give you some more information and hopefully that will help you to move forward.
Sounds good. Thank you. I'll reach out to you about that.
Okay, very good. Okay, so if there's not any other question, let's see whether we can cover a little bit of the course content because we have some time. And so don't forget to introduce yourself and then take that quiz. It's going to be based on chapter 1. And let's see, we can probably use this one here, and it's a very short chapter actually. So this is chapter 1, enable the editing, and I'm going to share it with you in a minute. And that's what it is. So I'm not sure what you can see.
We can see the PowerPoint.
Okay, that's good. So this is chapter 1, very short. And basically, we're looking at how we're going to be developing cybersecurity programs and policies for the organization. So this is a little bit much softer compared to what you did in the cybersecurity fundamentals, but it's part of the curriculum. So the whole idea about looking at the chapter 1 is you're going to be looking at how we can look at the value. Why do we need these policies? Okay, and then you're going to be looking at what role do they play in the organization's culture and also in the civil society. We do have our culture at Central. Okay, we call ourselves the eagles. And one thing that we know about eagles is that what? Eagles are very proud animals or birds. Okay, so anything that we do, we try to emulate that. Okay, working hard, making sure that we excel in what we do. That's the eagle spirit. We're going to be articulating the objectives of cybersecurity related policies and then identify the different characteristics of successful cybersecurity. What are the items or things that should be contained in a cybersecurity policy that make it to be more successful in the organization? Because when you set a policy, it is for the whole company. When you go to Walmart, you find that most of the employees, they have what? A uniform. And they used to call them employees, now they call them kind of like associates. That's part of the culture. You want to make sure that the employees feel that they are part and parcel of the organization. So the color, the uniform that they wear is a way of identifying with the company, and it's part of their policy, it's part of their culture. The same way, Central, we have the maroon. Okay, that's part of our culture, it's part of our policy. And then you're going to be looking at what we call the life cycle of a policy, because these are documents that are going to be developed. So before we can end up with a policy, there are a number of steps that we need to follow to develop that. Okay, so that's what you're calling the life cycle. Okay, so we have that. So this is a generic description of what a policy is, and this is coming from the Merriam-Webster, and they say is a definite course of action or procedure, and you actually don't have to cram this. You don't have to kind of like memorize what this is, but at least have an idea. Okay, that when you talk about a policy, it is selected from alternatives. So before a company comes up with a policy, they might have other what ideas, and then they just pick one. Okay, and it's supposed to be helping guide the company's what present and what future decision. Okay, so a policy is a guideline, is a document that provides guideline for the present and the future of the organization. So that's general for policy. And then of course you're going to be looking at cybersecurity what policy. Now they give you some examples here, and we are saying what we have the Torah and what and the Bible, and they're written as what as a policy. Some of these are what 3,000 years old. Okay, I was very lucky to go to Egypt a few years ago to see the pyramids that were made what 2,500 years BC. Some of them are actually almost 3,000 years back. Okay, huge artifacts. So first documented attempt at creating a code to preserve the what order. If you read the Bible, we have the 10 Commandments, right? What is the first commandment? Anybody? The first commandment is what? Or just give me one in the Bible, or the Torah, or the Quran. Anybody? You're familiar with the Ten Commandments, right? Anybody home? You guys disappeared. Caleb, are you there?
You said
Yeah,
just
I'm
one
looking
of the
for the Ten
commandments?
Commandments.
Yeah, just give me one commandment. It's 10
Thou
of
shalt
them.
not kill.
Okay, thou shalt not kill. Very good. Dahil, one. I give. Okay, thou shalt not steal. Okay. Jacob, yours. I gave you enough time to Google them up. Come on, guys. Jasmine, anything?
Thou shalt honor mother and father.
Very good. Robinson,
Commit adultery.
very good. And who is the other? Marvin, you said something already? Okay, so these were written many years ago, and they're actually examples of what we are calling what? Policies. Okay, so examples from the Torah, not to use false weights and measurements. It's actually in business, so they are kind of like the ones they have given examples of the ones that are usually geared towards business. Okay, don't charge excessive what? Interest. This is in the Bible. To be honest in what? In all your dealings. Okay, don't bear false testimony. Pay wages what? Promptly. Okay, so if you have your employees, make sure that you're paying them, and then also fulfill what? Promises that you keep to what? To others. Don't lie, and on like that. So these are examples of what you're calling policies on a higher level. Okay, so U.S. Constitution also is what? It has a policy. That's what we are talking about now. Peaceful transfer of power. It's part of the policy that every 4 years we have an election, and then whoever wins on 20th January, they are sworn in. Okay, that's how we have been able to preserve this democracy. Okay, and they explain, so a rule set with a built-in mechanism for what? For change. So serve as rules that guide the behavior. The whole idea about policy is to make sure that we are guiding the behavior. Okay, now the books goes a little bit more details about such concept, but policy is geared towards making sure that we are guiding the behavior. So policy also aligns with what we are calling what? Corporate culture. Okay, so corporate culture. Shared attitudes, that's what culture is. Shared attitudes, the values. Okay, so what is the value system? Like for Central, what are some of our values? Can somebody tell me some of the values that we have at Central? Because those define what you're calling our culture. Okay, somebody give me some values.
I think one of them, it's more of a motto, but truth and service.
Very good. Truth and service. Okay, service is actually one of the hallmarks of what? Of our culture. Because everybody, before you graduate, you have to give some what?
Community.
Office hours. You have to community hours. Okay, that's part of our what? Of our culture. Okay, and practices that characterize what? A company. Okay, so truth and service. Okay, so some of these policy can be what? Negative. Some of them can be neutral, and some can be what? Positive. Okay, so this is something that we have to. So when you talk about something being negative, you're saying is what? Is hostile. Sometimes it can be what? Dangerous. It can be damaging, and sometimes can lead to what? Things that are not for what? For sale. Now we want to make sure that for the organization that our policies and our culture is what? Is positive. Okay, so creates and sustains a welcoming workplace, values customer and partner what? Relationship. That's part of when you're talking about the positive culture. Okay, positive culture. Now, guiding principles, they reflect the what? The corporate culture, truth and service. That's the key point here. So, cybersecurity policy document that states how an organization plans to protect its information assets, and we talk about an asset, a resource with a value. Now, the most important asset in an organization is what? Somebody? So you're saying an asset is a resource with a value. In an organization, what is the most important asset? Or one of the most important assets in an organization is what?
Information.
Say that again.
I said
Okay, let me.
intellectual property. I believe Jacob was speaking too.
Okay, Jacob.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Information.
The information. That's 50%. Somebody else?
I said intellectual property. I'm not sure if that's the same as information.
Intellectual property. So all those are correct, but also employees are the most important asset in an organization. Because if you don't have employees, you don't have an organization. Okay, so we'll be talking about this as we move forward. Employees are one of the most important assets in the organization. And then, of course, we bring the information, and then we have intellectual property, okay, because that helps us to be able to come up with new items, innovation, and on like that. So all good answers. Okay, let's see where we were. Okay, so information asset, we'll be looking at that. So customer data, that's an example of information asset. And by now, you should be able to have a good understanding of the relationship, all the difference between data, information, and knowledge. Okay, because those are the three items that you're going to be talking when talking about cybersecurity. All what you're doing is you're trying to make sure that we protect the data, we protect the information, and then we protect what? The knowledge. So you have the data, which is a process facts, and then once you process those facts and they have some meaning, they become information. And then when you aggregate information from different sources, you have what? Knowledge. And then you can use the knowledge to help you in decision making. Okay, so note about that. Now, cybersecurity policy. Okay, we're talking about what? Document that states how a company plans to protect its information assets and information what? Systems. And then you have the concept of legal and regulatory compliance. So that's now where the government comes in, okay? Because it has to be something that is legal. So you're going to be taking care to make sure that you're doing legal things, and then the government also comes in, or some government entities, to make sure that there is what? Compliance. So we'll be talking about some of those agencies that are going to be ensuring there is compliance. Most of us are familiar with what we call the HIPAA, okay? The HIPAA law. Okay, so anytime that you go to your doctor, you have to sign a document that says that if you want them to share your data with the dentist or any other, you have to be informed. So that's part of the HIPAA, and the government ensures that that is happening. Okay, so that's part of the legal and regulatory compliance. Okay, so we're going to be looking at that. And then we're looking at the defense in depth. And this is kind of like looking at the organization. And then you see at how the different levels of the organization, how they're able to protect the information. So the administration, okay, this is like the CEO, the CFO, the top group for an institution is the chancellor. They come up with the policies, they do the planning, and they do what? The training. So we'll be looking at how we can set up the policies, how we can make sure that the policies are in line with what we are planning, and how we can ensure that we train the employees, because there is no value that's going to be gained if you have a policy and the employees don't know anything about this policy. Okay, if they're the ones who are going to be implementing this policy, they need to be trained on these policies. And then we're going to be looking at what? The physical security. So these policies are going to be geared towards ensuring that there is what? Physical security of the organization. We have cameras. Central, we have cameras. Okay. And recently, actually, you might have seen the value of these cameras. We have had some cases whereby we have people coming on campus, stalking and people stealing things, and then 2-3 days later we get another email that says this person was caught, or sometimes they provide what? Some information about pictures and videos. Actually, this is now happening with what? With what happened in DC. The FBI, they are circulating pictures of people who what? Breached what? The Senate, the Congress, and things like that, because we have some policies. These are federal property. You should not go in there without what? Permission. There is a policy that has been set. And then to ensure now that that is followed, we have cameras. And then we have what? Locks and things like that. So companies also have similar items. Perimeter security, we have firewalls. You should be familiar with what a firewall is from the cybersecurity fundamentals class. IPS, segmentation, okay? How you make sure that in an organization, not everybody have access to what? To all the resources, okay? So if you're the technical people, that is what you have access to. If you have users, they have access to different resources, okay? And then you have virtual LANs and on like that. Network security, you have authenticated routing protocols. You should be familiar with that. If you've forgotten this, try to make sure that you review this, okay? Network device hardening, okay? So you have more than one way of accessing the resources, okay? So you have passwords, you can also have the locks, you can have fingerprints when you're accessing what? The resources. And then in terms of the network, if you have the network room, you have what? Access cards, biometrics, things like that. Malware protection, you have antivirus software, okay? And then the application, okay? You have robustness testing and best practices, okay? Like one of the way that you can ensure that there is what? There is application security is making sure that what? People have passwords and they don't what? Write their passwords on sticky notes, okay? Or put them in the desk. And then they maybe can do what? Change their password every what? Every couple of months. How often are you supposed to change your NCCU email password or Blackboard password? How often? Somebody?
I believe it may be like 120 days or maybe 90 days. Not exactly sure.
Okay, somebody says 6 months. 6 months? That's really a little bit too far away. Are you sure it's 6 months? I saw somebody type 6 months. Because I get reminders that are a little bit. I think Blackboard maybe are they the same, Blackboard and email?
Yeah, it's
Do you
every
use the
3
same?
months for both.
Every 3 months, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing for everything. So Blackboard, Banner, all of them use the same password, right?
Yes, they're all linked.
Yeah, that's maybe not very good. I don't know. Yeah, it's a little bit risky because if you breach one, everything goes. Yeah, so that's kind of policy. So there is a reason why they said it like that. Maybe somebody should find for us why they said it like that. Why don't they have a different for maybe Blackboard and maybe email and maybe Banner? Because some schools, some institutions, they have it different. But that's the policy that we have here. Okay. Now maybe they thought people are going to be forgetting them. It's going to be a little bit difficult to manage the password. But then you have to balance the security and what? And the ease of use. So that's part of what you have to do when you're setting the policy. And sometimes you might have to involve the users, okay, when you come up in a policy to see how effective that policy is going to be. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but if somebody wants to go ahead and do that for us, that will be actually nice. Okay, so that's part of what you're calling the best practices. Okay, so successful policy characteristics. For you to have a policy that is successful, you want to make sure that it's endorsed, supported by the management. Okay, because if you're in charge of IT, you're the CIO, and you come up with a policy that nobody else agrees with, the top management, if they support it, there is a high chance that it's going to be what? Accepting the organization, because they can help you to champion that. So you want to make sure that the management supports that policy. Relevant, applicable, and supports the goals of the what? Of the organization. What is that you're trying to do here? Okay. So like we just mentioned, that policy of having the same password for all those applications that we have probably is supported by the top management at Central, and users are what? Are okay with it, okay? So it's helping to support the goals of the organization. Realistic, it makes sense. You want to make sure that the policy makes sense and is applicable, attainable. it can be implemented successfully. Because if we decide that we are going to have a different password for Blackboard and for Banner and for email, that can sometimes be problematic. Okay, adaptable, it can be changed. So if something happens and we have to change the policy, then it's going to be adaptable. It can be easily changed and then enforceable. Very, very important. We need to have a way to ensure that we can make sure that what? We can enforce that policy. So everybody should have a password. Okay? We don't have people using the resource without the password. And then inclusive. Everybody is what? Included. And when you're coming up with the policy, you have to involve the users. It's very, very, very important that you involve the users. Anytime that you're coming up with a policy, some of you have gone or will go through what's called the system development lifecycle. Anytime that you're developing an application, user involvement is very, very important because that will help you to make sure that the policy or whatever you're developing is accepted by the users. So these are some of the characteristics that you should have with your policy. Now we talk about the policy in government. And we talk about regulation is required to protect what? Infrastructure and also the citizens. Okay. So we have two major ones which were passed in the 1990s. And I think the first one is actually named after the congressmen and senators. So usually some of these will be named according to the people who sponsored the bills. Okay. And then you also have the HIPAA. So HIPAA is one that is actually more popular. And that's because healthcare impacts all of us, and one way or another, you'll have to go to a doctor, dentist, or whatever. So we are familiar with that. So these are the two major ones. You never know. You might go for a job interview and they ask you for that. Okay. So HIPAA at least is a good idea if you actually know what the acronym stands for. Okay. Because if you talk that language, so one of the ways that you can actually demonstrate that you understand a subject is if you speak the language. Okay. So in accounting, they talk about the debt, debit and credit, okay, cash brought forward and things like that. If you go for a job interview in accounting and you speak that language, it shows that you understand that. In biology, they talk about the cells and things like that. You speak that language. When you come to cybersecurity, if you're talking about HIPAA and all these laws, at least it'll demonstrate that you understand the concept and the language. Any question? Okay, so what you're going to find is, and this happens in cybersecurity and sometimes also in some other areas, the states have the leeway to develop their own laws. Okay, so that's one of the advantages of the United States because the states have a lot of leeway in what they can and what they can do. So California was the first to enact the consumer cybersecurity notification, and usually what you're going to find is cybersecurity and IT in general develops a little bit faster compared with the laws. So we have IT maybe 5 miles ahead of the laws and policies and regulations. And usually what will happen is we'll develop something and then people will come back and say, hey, that should be taken care of. And then we come back and we develop the laws and the policies and all that. So some of the states, California, they have because of the Silicon Valley, and Massachusetts, the same thing. They have a lot of technical and tech companies and employees. So they actually are able to see some of these things before other states see that. And they come up with these laws, and then other states will follow through and develop these policies. So that's how you see California started. And by now we have 46 states that have developed that. There are still some other states that lag. They are called laggards. So they're a little bit behind, but we hope that they'll be able to catch up. The same thing with Mass, they also did that. So we'll be able to look at that. So we have other federal banking regulations. I'll be looking at this in more details. The FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. So that's the one that says that if you have an account, at least you have what, up to $100,000 insurance and things like that. In case the bank or the credit union winds up, you will be able to be compensated. So that's a little bit about the policy. We have some in the European Union. And what you're going to find is that the European Union actually has more stringent cybersecurity laws and regulations compared with the US. Okay, the US, we have a little bit more lag behind, and I think one of the reasons because of the lobbyists. The US, the lobbyists are very, very powerful. Okay, I don't know how many of you have gotten the $600 from the last stimulus, but if you look at that bill, corporations got a lot of money, and we're only getting $600. It's all about the lobbyists. They're very powerful. You call them the swamp or whatever you want to call them. But the European Union has actually more stringent cybersecurity laws and regulations compared with the US. So that's something to think about. Elections have consequences, and people that you put in office make these decisions sometimes. So we talked about the life cycle of the policy. So this is a document. Before you develop the document, you have to plan. You have to do a little bit of research to find out what are you going to be covering. Then you have to, of course, do the writing as a document. And then you have to vet. You have to give different people look at it. They make sure that the language is correct. Sometimes you need the lawyers, and then you have to approve. And then the company has to authorize it, or the government has to authorize it, and on like that. And then you publish it. You publish, you communicate, you educate the people, and then you adopt, okay, or adopt, and then of course you review, okay, at the end. You see whether things are happening. Some of the policies that have been written 5 years ago, now they are useless. So what do? You retire them. Or what do? Some of them are written for 5 years, and then you have to reauthorize them, okay? You have to go back and give them more power. So that's what you're talking about, the cybersecurity policy life cycle. You develop, you publish, you adopt, and then you review. It's very similar to what you call the system development life cycle when you're developing an application. Any questions? Are we together? So no questions means either you understood or you did not understand. So I'm kind of like lost a little bit.
Everything made sense to me.
Okay, that's positive.
Oh, and
Now the book, okay, the book goes a little bit more detailed. The first chapter is actually very short. It's like what, 20 pages. So make sure you go through that, and then go ahead and do the quiz, do the introduction, and then start reading on chapter 2 and chapter 3. And what do you want us to do about next week, since we don't have a class on Monday, now that I have you here?
I'm open to meeting any of the days of the week as long as it doesn't interfere with any of my other courses.
Okay. How many people do you want to meet on Monday? We can meet for 1 hour or maybe an hour and a half on Monday, the same time, before you go to your parties or something. I'm open to meeting on Monday if you want, but it's a holiday. I can't force you to meet. But I'm sure Martin Luther will have wanted us, Dr. Martin Luther will have wanted us to do something, especially given the COVID and what it's doing to our communities. He will have wanted us to do something to make sure that we improve our lifestyles. So,
Monday is good for me too.
okay, so I have one Monday.
I'll be. This is Holland.
Okay, so we can meet on Monday at 11.
I can't.
Okay, so what I can do is if I have some people who want to meet on Monday, we can meet and then we can record. The same way I'm going to record this and then I'll post it and then you can look at what we did. And if you have any question, you can get back to me either Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or something like that.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to stop.